This webinar series is brought to you by Group Coaches International in cooperation with Blackwater. Smell good, feel good. This coaching webinar series would like to give special thanks to the following: Samahang Basketball ng Pilipinas Coaches Commission Head, Coach Dong Chico, Basketball Coaches of the Philippines President, Coach Louis Gonzalez, Got Skills Head Coach Alan Ricardo, and frontliner Christopher Campuyano.
Again, good evening, dear coaches, and thank you again for joining us this evening for another webinar. This time we'll have our special guest from Talking Text. But before introducing Coach Mark Dickel, I'd like to say good evening also to our resident sports psychologist, Doc Teddy Villasor. Good evening, Doc.
Good evening, Coach Ariel, Coach Mark, Rick.
Hello, good evening.
And of course, our broadcaster, Rick Olivares. Good evening. And Rick, I'll give you the honor of introducing our special guest coach.
Well, to all our participants, Coach Ariel, Doc Teddy, we've got a really special guest. It's not every day we get to have a guest who made the semifinals of the World Cup, the FIBA World Cup, where his New Zealand team finished fourth, but he's also an Olympian. That's not even the coolest thing. This man played for someone who Filipino basketball fans are probably familiar with, Coach Bill Baino. This man played for the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, running Rebels. He was a point guard who averaged double figures. His playing career spanned almost 2 decades before embarking on a coaching career that saw him start off with Albania, and now he's here in the Philippines, also with Ateneo. The man I'm talking about is none other than Coach Mark Dickel. Welcome. Good evening, Coach.
Welcome. Thank you for the introduction, man. It's good to be here.
Coach
Again, I'd like to thank you for joining us, Coach. And just, I know Rick introduced where you played and how you start coach, but from your journey, what has it been like? How was your journey as a coach, from a player to a coach?
Well, look. I think for me, it started really, really early. Obviously, my father was a coach, so I kind of grew up around the game. I was really little as a kid. I wasn't big, So around the age of 14 or 15, I grew a lot, and that's suddenly when I became capable. As a player, it kind of happened for me at once. So, up until then, I was kind of the guy that was watching the other people play, and I was always around tournaments. And being that my father was a coach, I was kind of already thinking more like a coach. And then fast forward a couple of years, suddenly I've gone from that. I'm like the last player on my high school team to suddenly when I'm 16 years old, I'm starting on our pro team in my city. So it happened for me really, really quick. 2 years after that, I'm playing for Baino or UNLV, and suddenly I've gone from playing in front of 2,000 or 3,000 to in front of 25,000. So, the basketball thing for me, it just sped up from there. Really, really lucky for me that I had Bill Baino as my coach in college. He was really patient and good with me. He's still someone that I talk to most weeks about, pretty much everything. And then from there I went to UNLV, and then I had 12 years in Europe, playing as an import over there. And, that really felt like 2 or 3 years. That went so quick. And then I'm 34 years old now. Then I decided to, I really want to do this coaching thing. I don't want to keep playing until I can't play anymore. So, that's kind of when I transitioned into being a coach. And I kind of figured if I really want to be a good coach, it's not good enough just to have been a good player. You've got to learn how to be a coach. So I kind of went back to New Zealand. I took a role actually coaching kids. That was my first job. That was coaching kids from under 13, under 15, under 17, under 19. I kind of did that for a couple of years. And I was still playing professionally in New Zealand at the time. So it was kind of a way for me to, A, make a good income, and B, learn how to be a coach. I would recommend that to anyone if you really want to learn how to coach. Try and coach 11 and 12-year-olds how to do stuff. That's much more difficult than dealing with adults now, like what I'm dealing with talking text. At this level, it's just motivating them and putting them in the right level. When they're young kids, you really got to teach them how to play. So, from there, I started coaching the pro team in my city. That was really enjoyable. Last year in New Zealand, I was assistant coach on the national team also. I got an opportunity over here with Talk and Text, actually through Bill Baino and secondarily through Tab endorsing me. And yeah, just took the opportunity and felt like it was too good an opportunity to turn down, come over and kind of be taken out of my comfort zone a little bit. It was just so easy for me in New Zealand. There was there's not pressure, because if you don't win in this job, you're out. But there was no pressure for me from the standpoint of everybody over there knows me and I'd already established myself. So, for me, it was the challenge coming over here and really knowing nothing about it. I'd only been here one time previously, assistant coach on the national team, watching games. So I didn't know a whole lot about Philippine basketball other than that they were incredibly passionate. And they got huge crowds to the game and everybody knew the game from what I could tell sitting on the bench. You learn a lot about countries you go to from the comments you get from the crowd. And when people are educated on the game, and over here immediately I could tell they knew what was going on. So, my country is not so much like that. It's more rugby and cricket and sports like that the average person is super educated on. So that was always interesting for me. That was kind of the background I had in coaching. The coaches that I had the opportunity to learn for and play for, I feel like I've taken a little bit from them and tried to put it together and make my own kind of recipe of what I would like the game to look like. But at this point, man, I'm just a work in progress. I just look at it like that. Like there's so many things, A, I want to get better at, and B, I think I have to learn in order to get to the point that I want to get to.
Coach Ariel, I have a question for Coach Mark. I hope you don't mind.
Oh,
Sure.
Back out in a few minutes for a while. Coach Mark, what system were you running at UNLV? Because when you got to play for Coach Tab, it was a triangle, and you talked about that recipe of yours. What have you brought together from both into what system you preach today?
Well, in college, we ran a lot of sets. It was more, you run a play for a guy to get a shot. And that play wasn't often for me. It was more for the more talented guys I had on my teams, right? But Billy was really good because, first off, the shot clock was longer then. It was 35 seconds as opposed to now it's 24. So you had a lot of end of clock situations of which he'd give me the ball back and allow me to play off the screen and roll in. So I kind of looked at every play like it was for me at the end of the clock. It was just at the start of the clock I had to find a way to make sure that we got the other guys the ball. If you fast forward that to Tab was my coach when I was 11 years old. And he coached me all the way through to when he left the national team when I was 29. So I've been on and off with Tab for the longest. And from the very first time that I worked out with Tab, he was all about trying to teach people how to play. I mean, that's why I have such a huge respect for him because, yeah, he's a disciplinarian and, yeah, he wants things done his way. But, man, he's really trying to teach you how to play. So, for the coaches out there, when you see Ateneo play, it's not a byproduct of all the practice that they're doing. All the teams practice. It's a byproduct of him actually teaching all those kids how to play. And, that's why he has such success on all of his teams. And the first time he saw me play, he actually thought I was left-handed and told me that I should play off more with my right hand. It was because my father had told me I wasn't allowed to do any moves anymore with my right hand. So Tab always thinks like that. He's always trying to make people out there work on what they see as their weaknesses. And he figures if you do that, then over time, you're going to end up being a really, really good player and your team will do well.
Coach Ariel. Teddy?
Man, I'm happy to keep going. You want me to go on some of the similarities, some of the differences I've seen from here for around the world?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, so just observations. Obviously, I've been here almost 2 years now, and we should have played 6 conferences, but I've only got a chance to play 3, right? So I've had a lot of opportunity to look. I've gone to every PBA game that we didn't play in that I could. I've watched every game on TV. I watch all the UAAP games. Obviously, I try and help that being the Tab's involved with Ateneo and give him my thoughts, and he does much the same at Talk and Text. So I feel like I've got a relatively good idea at the high level over here of how the game is played. You know, the things that I think make Filipinos unique don't necessarily transfer over onto the court. You know, like speed, agility, quickness, shooting, passion, toughness, not being scared. All of these are great traits to have. These are traits that around the world, if you focus on the right things in the game, man, they're going to make you incredibly tough to beat. You look at a lot of college teams, they're all undersized. You know, there's no player who's over 6'5" or 6'6". In Europe, the same. They play a lot of teams that are undersized. But they can beat teams with size because they play to their strengths. You know, from what I see, a lot of teams over here don't necessarily do that. They're trying to play a style that is not conducive to that. Like the NBA to me is by far the best basketball in the world because all the best players play there. That's why they play that style. That's the reason they play like that, because the simpler you make it, the easier it is for great players to play. Whereas around the world, there's got to be some more continuity to the game. There's got to be some more misdirection or depth, layers to your system in order to make it difficult for the defense to be able to guard you, or vice versa. And you know, like if you equate it to the UAAP, man, there's 4 or 5 teams that are as talented as Ateneo. You know, and yet Ateneo seems to find a way to make it really difficult for every other team, A, to run their stuff, and B, they get better shots than the other teams get. So that's what I've noticed in the UAAP. I've really noticed that there's so many good teams and they're all well coached. It's just maybe they're not playing directly to what their skill set or their talent is on their teams. Whereas, you know, Ateneo does that. You know, when I first came to Talk and Text, I can remember Billy telling me, he was like, you're taking a job there that no one else wants. There's a lot of pressure on that job. You know, like if you had bad results in that job, you're not going to be there for too long. You know, that to me let me know right away that there's an expectation in this job at Talk and Text to win, that people here are expecting results. And to me, that's how it should be. Right. And then I looked at the roster we had and the players we had, and we had talented players all over the court. So, you know, it just didn't really add up that our team was struggling like that. And then I looked at the other teams in the PBA and I was like, okay, Jumar, I knew Jumar from the national team. I know he's a problem. There's no other bigs over here other than Slaughter. Okay, when I came here, it was right at the end of a 6-5 conference. So all of the PBA teams got 6'5" import players in that played as big men. Okay, that kind of makes sense because there's a lack of size here. All right, how do the other teams play? A lot of the other teams are trying to play like how San Miguel play. Well, that's not going to work because there's only one Jumar. So that was my learning process to go through it. Like, how can I take the team that I have now, Talk and Text, and make them unique and not necessarily worry about how we beat San Miguel, because we were losing to everybody before that too. It was more, how do we make it so that every team in the PBA struggles to match up with us, right? So, you know, that's the process that I went through straight away was that, okay, we've got a lot of talented players. How do they fit? Do they fit? Do they want to play together? Is there any chemistry together? All the other PBA teams are really talented also. They got a lot of really good players on their team. San Miguel seemed to have the deepest roster, as in the most capable, say 1 through 7. Everyone else is pretty close though. You know, the talent spread around the teams is pretty good. So why is San Miguel winning all the time? It's not just Jumar. What are they doing well? You know, what did Ginebra do well in certain conferences? How are they able to play really well when Brownlee's there? Okay, what do they do differently when he's not there? That was my process that I went through as soon as I came, because each conference is so different. You know, hopefully we're about to play an all Filipino conference, which to me is the realest conference, because that's without anyone covering anybody's holes on the team, right? So, you know, that's an exciting process. You know, obviously not having Jumar or San Miguel makes it more wide open. However, and they got Mo in there now too, so that's not like that's a big drop off. So I still see them as one of the top teams, if not the top team. So, you know, the league is very even. The parity is very even. In the eliminations, anybody can lose to anybody. In the playoffs, you know, all the teams are tough. They're all well coached. Everybody's scouts. There's no easy games. Man, it's just a really good competition. Really, really excited, you know, as soon as I came here to be in a country that plays basketball all year round. Always an interesting prospect because usually you have 7-8 months on, 4 or 5 months off. So, you know, that was really interesting to me because, you know, how do you handle that, injuries, you know, wear and tear, how much do you practice? You know, just a lot of learning went into that the whole first 3 or 4 months.
Yes, Coach. There's a question from Emerito. After a year staying, how's your perception? Is Philippine basketball improving or getting worse?
Oh, the Filipino basketball is improving a whole lot. Just since I've been here, it's improved a lot. I've noticed how teams are playing differently and trying to attack certain stuff, just that we do differently. You know, like we trapped Junmar in a fashion that had some success, and now a lot of teams are doing that. Yeah, look, man, it's really improving. If you look at how Filipino basketball is seen around the world and how it should be seen and how it will be seen in the future, it's just not compatible with how it actually is. There's so many talented players here that can play. You know, transfer it to New Zealand. Our national team is better right now, but we have 10 or 15 players that could play at that level. In the PBA and in the Philippines, there's probably 40 or 50 players that could play at that level. So, of course, Philippine basketball is going to improve. Of course it is. You know, that's why I was so excited to see that they gave Tad the opportunity to run the program because, I mean, that's what he did for us. I mean, we went from 103rd in the world to 4th. And that was in 3 years. And a huge part of that was, yeah, the players that were coming through, we all came through together and we were kind of in our prime. But he was our coach from under 20s, under 18s through to the national team. So he was a big part of the reason we got that continuity. So in seeing the way that the program that Tad has set out, that, you know, Boss Al, Boss Ricky, Boss MVP have put forward with Ryan Gregorio, I'm sure that if they can stick to that program, by 2023, there's going to be a really competitive national team. Because, look, Tad's done it before. He knows what it takes. You know, who ends up being the national team head coach for that is not as important as making sure that all the players are all prepared and ready and experienced and know how to play a multitude of different styles, because that's what international basketball is. So, you know, when the PBA has 11 or 12 teams all playing a different style, is when our national team will be exponentially better.
What was your idea of Philippine basketball before you came over here?
1 second, just turn the light on, man. It's getting dark, right?
Okay.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
What was your idea of Philippine basketball before you came over as a player before? What was your idea of Philippine basketball?
Yeah, I knew Jason Castro. Obviously, I knew Terrence Romeo. I knew Junmar. I knew Troy. Like, they just through scout stuff. My opinion of it just seemed like against us, for example, New Zealand, we want to play a disciplined style. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We want to try and make it so that it's very, very difficult for the other teams to match up with what we do. And on defense, don't make any errors, right? So there has to be adjustments made to how we were trying to play. Now, for the talent that you guys have on your team is far greater than the talent outside of our top 2 or 3 players we have on the New Zealand national team. Way better. 1 through 10, your guys' team is much better. So how do you speed that game up? How do you make the game quicker? How do you make it take the ball out of our better players' hands and put it in the other guys' hands? They were the questions that we were asking before the game and preparing for what was going to happen when we played your national team. So my opinion was kind of that, like, wow, man, there's so many talented players on their team. We'd love a couple of their players they're not even playing to be on our New Zealand national team. So I knew there was crazy talent here. That wasn't the issue. It's just, how do you play a style that allows all those players to produce and play really well? You know, that was the questions I had when I came here. And then seeing a PBA game, I was like, wow, there's a lot of really good players underneath those players too. So there's no reason the national team here is not really good and with a whole lot of depth.
Okay, Dr. Eddie, there's more questions from Clarence.
Coach, we have a question from Clarence.
Sure.
What makes Coach Tab a great and a unique coach? What is his philosophy? What are the qualities that you would want to follow from Coach Tab?
Well, just to adapt, right? Like, you know, like, look, man, Tab's good. He's smart, and he doesn't beat himself. He's prepared. His teams are ready. Gets on great with the guys. But man, he adapts. He completely changes from one thing to the next. He ran the triangle for a long period of time and had success. And then with our national team, he ran a motion offense and then let me play off screen and roll. Now you look at him now, he doesn't run any of those stuff. He runs motion, he runs different sets, he makes another offense up. I think it's just his adaptability and the fact that he listens to his players and he listens to all his coaches, right? So a lot of the coaches I played for, man, they didn't want to hear what I had to say at all. I think that's what made Bano unique too, was just the communication factor, and he wanted that communication. Another coach that I really respected was Brian Goorjian. I played for him in Australia my first 2 years out of college when I was 21 and 22. And he was much the same, man. Like, they want to have a lot of communication with their players and find out what's going on. And if you've got a feel for what's going on in the game, man, they're more than happy for you to tell them what you think will work, right? So, man, he just adapts. You know, he'll be sitting at home right now like, all right, maybe we should play zone. How can I learn that, right? Like, you know, like his real strength is his adaptability.
Coach, when you came to the Philippines, you were essentially the new member of your team. How did you get to know all your players and implement your system?
Well, it wasn't very hard for me because I was used to that. In my basketball life, I've always been the new guy. You know, playing as an import in Europe, man, you're cut waived on another team, you go and you just go right to the next thing. You know, I think my biggest strength is communication, right? Like the basketball stuff for me is a work on. That's stuff I'm still trying to learn and get better at. But I feel like that's my real strength. You know, and I'm going to find a way to get through to everybody exactly, A, what their concerns are, B, why you think we've been losing, and C, what do you think we need to do in order to fix this? Then go home, write up a plan, come back, and try and get everybody to buy in and find a way to do it. You know, look, coming to talking text, it wasn't easy. There was factions on the team. There were some guys that didn't really want to play with other guys on the team, at least from what I was seeing. So it's trying to find a way to get some truth to that. All the guys are great guys. The guys that were gone from the team were good guys. I got on great with all of them, but you know, my job as a coach is to try and get a group of guys that are going to buy in and pull in the same direction. In order to do that, you've got to find out what the truth is and then try and make the sense out of whatever truth they're telling you. So, you know, that was kind of the hand I was dealt when I came here, but it was something that it's not new for me at all. Like everywhere I went, whenever I was a player, I tried to approach it the same way. So as a coach, I've just tried to take that thing and do the same.
Thanks, Coach. We have a question from Ian. Ian's asking, what is the highlight of your coaching career so far? Thank you.
Well, look, I think the highlight has been, you know, for me, I took great enjoyment in my previous job in helping young kids go from 11, 12, 13-year-olds to the national team, to college in America. I have one guy that's got a great chance to go on and make the NBA. You know, I get real enjoyment out of seeing players improve and play better. You know, I'm still, in my mind, just transitioning from playing, to be honest with you. I love playing so much that, you know, I just want to pass my love of the game on to other people and try and help them improve at their game. You know, I'm looking at being in this coaching thing for the next 30 or 40 years. So, So I'm trying to keep that mindset of a player for as long as I can, because as soon as it's gone, then I won't want to work out anymore. I won't want to do anything. So, I've got huge enjoyment out of just working with the players every day, trying to help them get better at their skills, help them with goals, and then try and help them reach their goals. In New Zealand, that was my whole passion. I mean, the national team played for 6 months of the year. The other 6 months of the year, my focus was on every kid who was under the age of 18 that was in the national team program. So it was in order to try and help them reach their goals. And in New Zealand, a big part of that is not professionals going to college in America, or with what I did with 2 kids over there was send them immediately to Europe and play. So there's different pathways now. The world is going to become a really small place as far as basketball goes.
Coach, we have a question from Ronald. Ronald asks, what adjustment does the Philippines need to do to catch up with the international level of competition? Thank you.
Well, I think they're doing it. I think, like I hear a lot of other coaches say all around the world, not just here, the national team needs more time in order to prepare and get ready for national tournaments. Well, none of the other teams have any more time. Matter of fact, the Philippines probably has more time than others. If you're looking at New Zealand, we get 2 or 3 days before any window, and maybe 2 or 3 weeks before any national team international event. So, it's not preparation. That's not what it is as the team. What it is getting a whole bunch of players from the Philippines that are all able to play all around the world. And hey, that can be as a Gilas team that travels. That can be like what we've put together now with the new Gilas pool. But these players have to go all around the world and learn different styles and be coached by all kinds of different coaches and get exposed to a whole lot of different ideas and thoughts and get put in environments where they're playing as the import and they've got pressure, and if they don't perform, they're cut. There's only one way in this game to end up being the absolute best you can possibly be, and that's to be put under pressure every day and put under pressure as much as you can. If you're comfortable, you're just not going to improve. And being at the PBA is the biggest deal over here, and it really is close to the NBA in the average Filipino's mind. Those kids have made it. That's been their goal their whole life to make it. Around the world, it's just not like that. Like if you're from Spain, your goal is not to make the ACB. Your goal is to play in EuroLeague and make the NBA. So, their aspirations are so much higher. If you're talking Turkey, it's not to play in the TBL, it's to play in the NBA or play in EuroLeague. So, yeah, I think it's aiming higher. It's having something higher for the kids over here to aspire to. It's to have a pathway for them to do that, either through Asia or through the national team program or through college system elsewhere. It's just to get exposure to different styles of basketball, because otherwise, whatever the PBA or the UEEP is played like, they're the players we produce. Look at the New Zealand national team right now. Our top 7 players don't play in Australia or New Zealand. They're all playing all around the world. So, of course, when they come back and they play, they're going to add so much more to our program right now. And I think that's the way of the future. You've got to have players from all around the world that are all bringing different experiences back, so that when your national team gets together, they just keep taking you levels up.
Coach, Kai Soto recently announced that he'll be joining the NBA G League. He's the first international prospect to join. Ian's asking, what are your thoughts on Kai Soto's decision? Thank you.
Well, look, I think he's improved a lot in the last year. Just from I watch all the stuff on Kai. First off, great kid, awesome family, Irvin, wife, awesome. Got to spend a little bit of time with him just because I live right across the road from Ateneo and I'd see a lot of his practices. Look, I think he's a super talent. It's just hard to know what the right way to go is. You're 7'2", and your best attribute is you're a great passer. That can work, especially if you can shoot the ball, of which he's shown the ability to be able to shoot the ball. But the game's changing all the time. So, he's going to have to be able to stretch the ball out to the 3-point line, and he's going to have to be able to guard screen and rolls really well in order for him to make the NBA or to be an NBA prospect. I think he can do that. But that's the hardest thing for big guys to learn, is how to guard screen and rolls. And if you're him, the offensive end is going to be far, far easier than the defensive. You know, if you equate it to the NBA right now, his matchups are who? Who's his matchup? He's got to guard Porzingis, right? So you start looking at NBA players, you know, how do you guard them? I'm sure on offense in 3 or 4 years from now, Kai's going to be a good enough player to be able to give every team anywhere in the world problems. But man, you've got to be able to play at the other end too. So look, if he can work on his agility, if he can work on his strength a little bit, if he can work on his quickness, if he can really work on guarding screen and rolls, because in the NBA, that's all it is. Screen and roll, screen and roll, screen and roll. So how are you going to get really, really good at doing that? If he can, man, there's a role for him in the NBA.
Thanks, Coach. Coach Rial?
Yes, Coach. There's a couple more questions. What what do you think? What system does now that you've been here for almost 2 years, or 3 years? What system does Filipino should focus on in order to be successful in the world stage?
See, I don't think it's a system. I think it's just skill sets, right? Like shooting is a huge prerequisite, but dribbling as little as possible and getting good shots, it distorts the defense more and makes it so much harder to guard. So how can you dribble the ball less but get off more good shots, right? So being better off the catch, being better moving without the ball, being a better screener, being a better passer, being a better cutter. All things that right now, if you look at the best Filipino players, they're best when the ball is in their hands. Let's take Jason Castro. He is incredibly difficult to guard, A, off the dribble, or B, off the screen and roll. And that's his strength, because over here, that's how everybody plays, right? Well, I've been working with Jason a whole lot on off the ball. What do you do when you don't have the ball? Where do you stand? How do you play off screens? Use screens. Set your player up. Occupy your player. I think it's more those things. You know, they're all things that Tab worked on us with from the time we were 11, 12, and 13 years old. So by the time that you come to the national team now, if I have the ball in my hands or I don't, I still know where to go and what to do. I can still be effective no matter what your skill set. Shoot, non-shooter, be a better screener, cut more, whatever. But you've got to know how to play without the ball in your hands. So I don't care the system. All systems work. All the stuff the PBA teams run work. All the stuff the UAAP people run work. However, what are the players on the team doing when they don't have the ball? You know, what is the spacing on the court look like? Where do you stand when you don't have the ball? If you don't have the ball, how do you occupy your player? I think it's skill sets. It's not what they run. It's not a system. It's completely how you teach the players how to play an international style of play.
Okay, thank you, Coach. From Arwin Villamor Adina, if you've been given the head coaching job for Gilas and not on an interim basis, you honestly believe that we can beat the Aussie team and other contenders like Japan, China, and New Zealand in Asia, in FIBA Asiana? Or do you think what will it take to beat them, the top teams in the region?
Well, the first answer is yes, completely, 100%. We've got good enough players here. We've got a really good coaching staff. Hey, Tab's done it before. Whether he's the head coach or the coach behind the scenes helping everybody, he knows what it takes. I played 190 games for my national team. I played professionally since I was 16 years old. I can't tell you how many times I played in a game where the other team was 10 times better than we were on paper, and we win the game by 15 or 20 points. Because playing harder matters, playing smarter matters, playing tougher matters. You can do those three things and out-hustle everybody and give everybody a really hard game. And you've got to hit shots. So, yeah, we can beat all those teams, but we've got to play harder, smarter, more together, and we've got to make shots.
Thank you. Doc Teddy, there's more?
Yes, Coach. Coach Mark,
Yeah.
We have a question here. In your span of time here as a coach, Who were the local players who have impressed you the most?
Man, there's a whole lot. Now I got to be careful because I might get in trouble for tampering. Is that right? If I start saying the right one. Well, look,
That'll be
I've
all
been
right.
around the Ateneo players and obviously my talk and text players. I'll leave them out, right? So you know, like, look, the player that I think that is the hardest to guard in different ways is Stanley Pringle. He's good with the ball. He's good without the ball. He's really good on defense. Big fan of his. Look, man, I like Lassiter a lot from San Miguel. I like his demeanor. I like how hard he plays. But there's a lot of players. Matt Gallo from Blackwater. I kind of like that how he's multi-dimensional. Don's not one of my players now, but I really was a huge fan of Don. Just loved how he played, offensive rebounds. But there's so many, you know, like we just don't have the bigger players here. So you have a whole lot of mid-sized players that end up being super effective, just by virtue of the fact that if you're 6'4", 6'5", you can play a big man role. On my previous team, coaching or playing anywhere, man, I was 6'2" and little, right? There'd be 2 7-footers you start with, a 6'10" guy, and a 6'4", 6'5" shooting guard, and me. So, you know, like the game over here is a little bit different. You kind of look out there sometimes and you're like, wow, Owen Santos has 15 rebounds and he's 6'4", right? So the game here is totally different, but in a good way too. You know, in a good way. There's so many players. I like Elorde from Northport. I love how he plays. There's a lot of players in the PBA that have impressed me and maybe not valued by other people so much, but I just like how he pressures the ball and on offense he moves the ball to other players, because I think at the point guard spot that's kind of a lost art. So many people now want to score the ball, which is fine, but I really love the players that want to try and involve everyone else on the court.
Coach, we have a question here from Joe and Ronnie. It's almost identical. In terms of the national team, in terms of the physicality and size, do we have enough?
Yeah, for sure. Look, the game has changed. You're gonna, you know, most offenses are 4 out, 1 in. So you're gonna have one guy that's gonna be an issue down low, maximum. You know, the post-up game now is not what it used to be. You know, like Paul Aram and players like that, they can definitely hold that down. They're just got to be able to guard screen and rolls and be able to stick to rules and defensive rebounds. So, look, we've got more than enough size, big guys. I'm sure whoever the naturalized player that SBP decides to get will be a bigger player, and that'll be someone that can help anchor the middle. And we've got enough at every other spot. And keeping in mind that internationally, Junmar is really, really good. He's more than capable of being an anchor down there, especially for 15, 20 minutes a game.
Who are you eyeing, Coach? Just from on top of your head, who are you eyeing as our next naturalized guy?
Well, that's not me. You'd have to ask Tab that, or Ryan, or Boss Al, or any of them. I'm just the hired hand in this particular decision. I'm sure whoever it is will be a proven international player and a really, really, really good player. So I don't have any names. I haven't even spoken to Tab about it. You know, kind of since the virus hit, it's been more like Tab's telling me a video to watch. He's not telling me planning for the future, because when is the future coming, right? It's like everything's on hold.
Mm-hmm. Among the PBA coaches, who have you had the hard time the most? It's from Coach Dindo Patricio.
Man, all of them have presented different problems. I felt like the first conference was pretty easy because we were taken kind of lightly. You know, being that we've been so up and down the previous conference, meaning the last year's all Filipino. Look, all the teams are well organized. There's really not one coach that has presented more problems than the others. Off the top of my head, I mean, Norman Black gave us huge issues in the last semi-final series. I mean, that was a big wasted opportunity for us. I felt like we match up really, really well with Ginebra, just because they're so disciplined. Some of the stuff we do on defense gives them trouble. So that was a huge wasted opportunity for us.
Coach Norman seems to always coach well against talk and text, or better against talk and text for some reason.
Well, look, I think it's a combination of things. I mean, like we're the big brother, they're the little brother. That doesn't help. Like we're seen in our group as being the favorite son, whether that's right or wrong. So
it is right.
But both them and NLEX, they come at us, I feel like, harder than they come at any of the other teams in the PBA. So, and that's fine. That's how it should be. But at the same time, man, their players are super motivated now, motivated for a myriad of reasons to prove that they're good enough, or that they, that they're trying to prove a point. And they seem to play better and harder against us. So, for us, that's something that we've tried to address and we've talked about. But at the same time, man, like they did a good job last conference, and in the playoffs they beat us. So, we've got to find a way to come back whenever the next conference is and try and do that back to them.
Coach, I don't know if you've watched that webinar we did with Coach Trot Reyes, or you've read it on paper, that he came out that he thinks that the Gilas program would be better off with a Filipino coach. What's your take on this?
Well, look, first off, I did see his webinar. It was really good too, by the way. And first off, huge respect for Chop. He's been really nice to me since I've been here. Obviously, I love Josh's son. He's helped me so much. Really good young coach. Like I saw his comments. That didn't strike me one way or the other. It's probably a good conversation to have at some point. But to me, it should be more about, like who is the most qualified for the job. Surely you want to have the most qualified person for that, whoever that is. Now, if that's somebody from here, or somebody from Croatia, or France, or Australia, or wherever, then surely that person should be the best applicant for the job. I don't think it necessarily matters where that person is from. Coaching all around the world now, I mean, whoever that coach is, if it's me or somebody else, I'm sure is going to be able to relate to the players and motivate the players and get them to play how they want them to play. So I don't see that as being such a big issue, but I do respect where he's coming from.
Thank you, Coach. Teddy?
Coach, we have a question here from Coach Emerito. He asks, what are the differences in player temperaments, such as ability to pick up concepts, dealing with losing, mental sharpness in pressure situations, and so on, in New Zealand as compared to the players here in the Philippines? Thank you.
Well, New Zealand might be that might be a bad example, and let me explain to you why. Because we have a good 15 players. Under that, we have a whole lot of developing players that maybe one day could play on the national team. I think a better perspective is to compare it to somewhere like Europe. Okay, Turkey, I played 5 years there. So if you compare it to Turkey, they have a first, second, and third division. The teams in third division are good. They can compete with the teams in second and first division. We're talking a depth of maybe 3,000 or 4,000 players over there that are all capable and good. Huge population of people, all love basketball, all know basketball, educated in basketball, understand terminology, grew up in the game, kind of like what has happened here. I feel like the Filipino player is really intelligent and picks concepts up. I feel like they know ball, they're really experienced, and because they've played so much, especially in the PBA, they've just played game after game after game. And the coaching, for the most part, is pretty good. So the players are able to be coached, and you don't have to go over and over things. You can show things a couple of times, and they can pick up the concept of it. Now, the habit part of it, or how to get them to that be a habit, is something that is difficult over here, because maybe players get more comfortable and realize that they're kind of in a situation where from the PBA, where do I go next? I'll just hold on to my job here in the PBA and make sure that the people behind me can't come and take my job. So maybe the competition factor is not the same here for jobs as to what it is in Turkey or Greece or Russia or other countries I played in. And I think that's a part of it. But the education and the intelligence of the player here is, man, they're smart. They pick stuff up. That's not the issue. The issue is, will they do the things that you're trying to get them to do? Right?
Coach, I'll be asking.
Your question, yeah.
I'll be asking my question. With your many years of playing and coaching all around the world, could you kindly give us 5 qualities that a basketball coach should possess in order to be successful? Thank you.
Sure. Well, the first thing, and most importantly, is to be a teacher of the game. That is the most important thing. So if you wanted to know what the most important quality of being a good coach that I've seen other coaches be really, really good at, is they're a teacher first. So they don't want or think that the players are just going to pick up stuff or they should know it. Anything they don't know, that's a teaching moment. So, the better coaches I had were constantly pushing me and trying to help me and then teaching me the right way to do stuff. The second thing is to be really organized, right? So you got a practice plan. You got to have a plan for this month. You got to have a plan for this conference. You got to have a plan for the next conference. You got to have a plan for the whole 12 months. You got to have a plan for each player. In a year, he should be here. These are the things we worked on, and then another plan for the next year. You've got to constantly be organized. You've got to know the teams you're playing against, what the coaches try and do, what the players try and do. You want to have a complete plan so that when you look back at that previous day, week, month, year, you're able to say, okay, we did everything we could possibly do to be organized to do well. The third thing is you've got to be a really good communicator. So to be a good communicator doesn't just mean communicating directly with the player. That means communicating with the players in order to communicate with the other players in a fashion that builds team cohesiveness. That means talking to the management in a way that lets the management believe that we're going in the right direction. That means talking to the coaches in a way that you get their buy-in and you give them the opportunity to have their roles and grow. One thing I always remember Tab telling me when I was young, and not young, but just growing up through the national team and with his other assistant coaches is, you should want to be the head coach one day. You should want to have my job, and I'm trying to teach you in order how to do that. So I relay that to all the coaches all the time, that you should want to be the head coach, because when you want to be the head coach and you're communicating and thinking like the head coach, that helps you grow. The fourth thing, and now it becomes, more in-depthly, the motivating factor. How do you motivate all your players and communicate and get into their head that they have to go in the game and really give their best effort out there? You can't do that. You can't motivate well if you do not have an individual relationship with everybody and know what makes them tick and talk to them all differently. Yes, you treat everybody in the team the same, but that doesn't mean that you approach them and communicate with them the same. You've got to find a way to motivate everybody, because some people aren't motivated by money. Some people are. Some people are motivated because they don't want to let anybody in their team down. Some people are motivated because they want to win desperately. It's finding out what motivates everybody in your team and then being able to pull that button and push that each time you need to. And then the fifth part to me is, how do you deal with pressure? How do you deal with the games? What do you like in the games? What is your demeanor in the games? How do you handle your referee interaction? How do you handle timeouts? Do you have plays up your sleeve? Do you understand and make adjustments to what the other coach is making? They're the 5 things to me that I've seen that great coaches are able to take all 5 of those parts, individually become really good at them, and then pull them all together in order to be a really good and successful coach.
Thanks, Coach. Coach, Ian's asking, who do you consider to be your coaching mentor?
Well, look, I have 3. I have 3 I lean on a lot. Obviously, Coach Tab, awesome. He's been there for me for a long time. Obviously, Bill Baino has been there for me since I was 18 years old. And Brian Gorshin, I lived and played with him before I went to college in the States to play with Bano. And of course, my father, who I lean on a lot. They're the four guys that I really talk to a lot. I've got other good friends that are coaches, Division I coaches in college or in Europe. But for the most part, I can't trigger on those 3 or 4 guys.
We have a question from Opong from Ghana. And Opong's asking, what are the building blocks that have gotten Filipino basketball to where it is today? What lessons can any country draw from Philippine basketball? Thank you.
Well, passion is one thing that Filipino players and fans and everybody loves ball over here, and everybody's educated about ball. The biggest advantage that the Filipino has is that the average person understands basketball and knows how it should look. It's in your blood over here. I mean, it's your national game. Anytime that takes place, the only thing you need to look at and really get under control is what is our style of play and what is the skill set of our players. If that starts getting right from the time the kids are 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, man, the basketball over here is going to take off in the next decade or two. And look, on that point, I've got 3 young sons, 14, just turned 15, 13 and 11, and they've all been playing a lot of basketball over here. And there's one thing that I've seen around the world, and I've seen in New Zealand that we didn't allow to happen, is that we just didn't allow teams to play zone until they were 16 years old. We made them play man-to-man, and no teams play zone, because what has been proven and figured and worked out is that around the world, people just can't shoot the ball that well when they're young. And when you just stand in a zone, A, you don't learn how to play defensive rules and principles. And B, offensively, it turns everybody into standing around and stationary. It's very difficult to run motion offenses against any kind of defense when they're young, let alone against the zone. So that's just a byproduct of something I've observed. That would be the first thing if I had any influence that I would take out. I would make every team have to play man.
Thanks, Coach. Coach Ariel?
That's an excellent point, Coach. Again, Coach, would like to thank you, and hopefully, there'll be more basketball for us this year, or coming soon, hopefully. I'd like you to address, of course, the PBA fans and Talk and Text fans. What have been what has the team been doing, and some parting words from you.
Sure. Well, firstly, obviously, we're all hoping that there's PBA games to be played or basketball. Look, it's difficult for everybody, and I know for the players at Talk and Text, it's been really difficult for them, and I'm sure all the other players, not only in the Philippines but all around the world. We've tried to stay in contact with them as much as we can and make sure that they're doing their workouts and mentally staying strong. But look, the whole social media and not being directly in front of people, it's difficult to know exactly what's going on. So, I hope sooner rather than later there's a break so that at least people can get out and physically look at everyone in the eye again and see how people are doing and hopefully in a month or two be able to get out and start practicing again and hopefully get ready for another conference. But look, there's bigger issues in basketball right now. There's a lot of people that are getting sick and not doing well. So, we're going to be relying on science and hoping that they work out a way in order to make it so that we can play again. In the meantime, for the Talk and Text and the PBA fans, look, I'm sure every coach and every player is doing everything they can do to try and get ready and put the best product on the floor that we can whenever the games come back. From what we're understanding around the world, the games will return with no fans, but thankfully for the PBA, all the fans can sit at home on TV and watch the games. To PBA fans, look, I feel like we've got a really good team. I felt like we've been building for this conference coming up. Obviously, with the addition of Poirier, and that kind of puts us in a position now with him and Kelly Williams. We've got 2 really good frontline guys that I feel like can really anchor our defense and be unselfish on offense. So look, I was super excited for this coming conference whenever it comes. And look, if it doesn't come, whenever this next conference comes, I'm sure we'll be ready. So, you know, like Ariel, thank you for the opportunity to come on and talk. I've really enjoyed, you know, logging in and looking and hearing what the other coaches have to say. You know, A, it fills in a couple of hours, and B, it's always interesting to hear what other coaches said, just like I was telling you before. So thank you for that. And look, I hope everybody out there is safe and well. You know, hopefully in the future we get back to playing basketball, and by 2023, Gilas's national team is ready to roll, so that then we can knock a lot of these big teams over and do really well.
Thank you so much, Coach, and for sharing. And of course, we only see you on TV, or fans only see you on TV. So this is like you know, a conversation, just like we're just in Starbucks, and so is we got you with us sharing, and you know, because most of the time some coaches think you're a snob, but you know, Coach Billy Bayo was telling me that you know you're just a serious guy.
Well, yeah, man. Well, look, it's very difficult. The rules are set up over here for it to be difficult. I don't really, you know, it's not my personality to come off like that. You know, I'm just trying to follow the rules that the PBA set as per a consultant, right? So look. Hopefully, over time, I'm able to get out there and be seen a little bit more in more of a relaxed setting.
Cool, Coach. And you know, Bill's been, you know, only have great words for you as a person and as a coach, and hopefully we'll be able to see more of you, and hopefully you bring success not only to Talk and Text but also to our national team.
Man,
Thank you so much, Coach.
Yeah, thank you, man.
And Doc Teddy, thank you, and to our attendees, we have another session at 8 p.m. with Coach Jeffrey Carriazo. His journey from being a player to a coach, to an assistant coach, and now to a head coach again with Alaska. He's gone full circle with the Alaska Aces. So it's an interesting conversation again with Coach Jeffrey Carriazo. Again, Coach Mark, thank you so much. God bless, and everyone stay safe. Quick dinner, and see you again at 8 p.m. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.